Luish, welcome to Potential is Human. As I've already said to you, I really do appreciate you giving of your time to connect, as you said, with yourself. So thank you. The podcast discussions, which I do have with other people, is really just about our individual journeys of transformation and tapping into the truth of who we really are as we unleash that infinite potential that each of us has within. You have quite a profound life story, which I know will unfold as we go through this discussion. Let's start with Luish as a young boy or a young man, right? Prior to understanding the spiritual world and awakening, what was life like then? Because it was still unique to you.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me to this talk, and I hope that and trust that as I tell you this story, you most importantly derive a sense of self-purpose from it. Because storytelling is of no use at all unless it can be used to inspire, motivate, and help you formulate and direct your own life. Who would we be without our story? We'd be the self who is the divine self without the need to be anyone. But it is the story that brings us into the awareness of self if we're willing to really reflect upon our experiences, and especially the challenges and the troublesome times, the troubled waters. When we look back after having transcended those moments of sheer hell, that we really realize what we are, and mostly through the experience of realizing what we're not. But yeah, as a little boy, I think as we all do, we think we're different. But I really I completely understood I was different in the way that I saw the world or how I could see from a very young age. And I was born in Mozambique, Lorenzo Marx, and 1967. And 1974, the Civil War broke out, and it was a war for the independence of Mozambique, independence from Portugal. And so it turned into a civil war. And my parents flee to South Africa. Literally, my father arrived home and got into the car, and we packed a bit of clothes, and we left to this country with basically a suitcase of clothes. And my father had been invited to South Africa by the then foreign minister to come and execute some interesting opportunities, and we then became naturalized and became South African citizens within a day of us arriving, which was unusual. And I grew up as a happy child, and I was creative and gentle and curious. But I had this understanding that I was seeing a dimension that others couldn't see, and it troubled me as a child, because you expect everyone else to see the world the way you do. And I just had this questioning mind, and I've had it ever since. I want to understand what's behind even the highest intention. I want to understand what makes humans tick. Why do we do what we do? And behind what we do, why? Why even exist? What is the purpose of it all? And I've had these questions ever since I was a kid. Of course, I was born with this so-called spiritual vision, this ability to see a dimension others couldn't, and it would scare people. So as a young boy in Mozambique, I was, even at the age of 6, I was invited to a radio show because of my so-called psychic abilities, and people would phone in, and they would want to communicate with their deceased parents or lovers or friends or children, and I would be able to communicate and give them facts. Now, 6 years old, and what does a 6-year-old know about the world? And I was just able to give the most bizarre answers, including recommendations, medical recommendations. And so I was growing immensely popular. People would even phone in and ask for soccer scores. Something I learned not to do very quickly, because as soon as I did that, it would immediately give me a screeching migraine, which would knock me out for the next 2 days. So the predictive information, I very soon realized, was not meant to be done. But on the other hand, I would be able to, and that's what I became really popular for, I was able to tell women whether or not they were pregnant, the sex of the baby, and even so far as to go, as to say to them, and your baby wants to be called XYZ. And so my mother thought this whole thing was quite fascinating. My mother's highly intuitive and just walking, talking angel in essence, just that kind of person that doesn't judge and loves everybody unconditionally, really unconditional love. My father was the exact opposite, a complete ogre. God bless his soul. So she was always open to these messages and this ability that I had. And of course, I was able, when my grandfather passed, living in Portugal, and we were in Mozambique, I communicated the fact that my grandfather had passed, and sitting in the lounge. I could see him in the lounge, and he was coming to say goodbye. And of course, the telegram arrived the next day. And yeah, it was fact. So people started to, especially my family, started to take me very seriously. And of course, there were those that were just petrified by you because of all the stigma attached to these kind of abilities. And so you were very quickly, sort of labeled evil, or there was a demon. And I would just laugh because I understood what was going on. I just had this memory, and I was also born with memory of this complete certainty that I'd been around many other lifetimes, and I could recall episodes. I couldn't recall entire lives, but I could recall episodes with total clarity and total understanding. And my mother just would urge me not to talk about it, especially when people weren't ready. So as I started to understand levels of consciousness, of course, I had no word for that as a young boy. I very quickly realized who I could be open with and who I had to just keep quiet and just walk away, just ignore. Of course, all that radically changed when we came to South Africa. First of all, I couldn't speak the language. We moved into a very conservative farming community just outside Rustenburg, and farming and mining city, and a conservative country. My very first day of school in South Africa, we had to catch a bus, and I got beaten up so badly that I almost died. I was thrown off the bus while traveling at speed. That cracked my skull open. I lost an eye. Still cannot see properly out of my right eye. I had a ruptured spleen, broken rib cage, fractured jaw. And I couldn't understand why, because I couldn't understand the language. And it was just, we look back on it now, you understand it's fear. And it was a whites-only bus. And this dark olive-skinned kid shouldn't be climbing on a whites-only bus. So at the heart of apartheid back in the early 70s. And that made me just avoid society, avoid people. And when I intuitively picked up the negative energy, the negative vibe, the prejudice, the judgment, the racism, I would just close off. And we all have fight or flight in us, and I don't have flight. I've only got fight. So I a very early age, started martial arts, learning to protect myself. And of course, as soon as you build your defenses, the attacks come. And the more I would equip myself with abilities, the more the attacks would come. And by the time I was 16, I was a Springbok karateka. And there wasn't a day that went by that there wasn't a physical form of attack. So at a very young teenage age, I became vicious. I learned to become vicious. And yet deep within myself is this gentle, creative, artistic person who deeply cares about people. And so Batman became sort of an alter ego, this gentle, sensitive soul, deeply wounded, sensitive soul that just created the mask to protect itself from its own vulnerabilities. And you just push that dark void aside. You just suppress it, and the persona comes out, the strong ego persona comes out that plays a protective, defensive layer. And you can imagine from that, all ambition comes. So the ambition grew, and policeman's son growing up on the other side of the railway means that you don't have what you always want. So the ambition started at a very young age, and I had this deep desire to grow wealthy, to become wealthy, and to become powerful, because the idea of wealth and power, which came with the ownership of properties and cars and people, places, things, and events, meant that if I had that power would then command a certain amount of respect. Of course, it doesn't. People see what they want to see. But it gave me a sense of self-worth, self-esteem, all egoic ideas, which, of course, the minute you build your castle from illusions, illusions test illusions. And it would all come crumbling down in my early 30s when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. But I pretty much achieved everything I set out to do. I studied architecture, I qualified. A year after qualifying, I realized it wasn't enough. And so I realized that I had this clarity that if I understood marketing, I would then be able to market myself as well. And by the time I was 30, I had a IMM diploma in marketing, a BCom degree in marketing, and a master's degree in strategic marketing. So the qualifications came, and with that came bigger jobs. And by the time I was 33, I was CEO of a multinational company, earning an absolute fortune, driving the Ferrari, owning a collection of motorcycles and cars, and living in houses have never been that important, especially since I'm an architect. Architect's house is never finished. So, but I had the house I wanted. I live in it still, designed, built it myself. And I pretty much had everything. I had what I deemed to be the perfect wife, which was someone that looked like a supermodel and had the brains of a civil engineer, mechanical engineer. And so on the surface, it looked like the perfect couple. We had everything you could want. I was in perfect shape. I was in the Springbok team still. I'd partaken in over 6 international tournaments. I'd come back with 6 gold medals. So I was achieving everything I wanted to achieve. My weekends were either riding the Harley, and I became head road captain of the Harley Davidson Hog Club in Johannesburg, the biggest chapter in the world at the time. And, it was on top of the world. And yet deep inside, there was this emptiness, this sad emptiness that I believed could be fulfilled by the next conquest, by the next acquisition, by the next deal.
Yeah.
I was just unhappy. And I still wasn't commanding the respect from strangers that I thought money and power and status and a Ferrari would achieve. Your peers and your colleagues and people that reported to you, your business partners, saw you in the way that you portrayed yourself and needed to see you that way. But the minute you moved into a rural area, I still remember looking, and people were still giving me that condescending, racist stare. And that would just fuel my anger. And that anger would just turn into ambition. More power, more money, more business, higher position. I'm quite entrepreneurial, but I'm a fix-it guy. So I have no desire to build anything, never have. No, I've never had a desire to build companies, but I've had a desire to transform businesses, companies, especially those that are in trouble or those that want to grow. And the height of my success as a businessman was the Zoom Zoom strategy for Mazda, which was a global strategy. And it was the highlight of my business career, because it not only were we putting out this creative idea and transforming a well-known brand into a superbly well-known brand, we transformed it from a car that no one wanted to a brand that became sexy and was climbing in terms of brand value index at a rate that no other brand was growing. And it was an exciting career, and it was exciting times, test driving cars and sneaking them at night, so the press, before they were launched, and doing the press launches and briefing the ad agency. That Grey Worldwide was the ad agency that did all the advertising and communication and writing the briefs and communicating with with the artistic creative team, phenomenal artistic creative team at Grey. Great times, and I had the ear of senior management at Mazda because I was the strategist. I was the guy with the ideas. It was a phenomenal time in my life, and so business grew, and whichever business I touched, I would transform. I took on a multinational German client, BASF, the largest chemical company in the world, and I was running their agrochemical division. And they were in trouble when I took over, and I grew the business over 139% in 5 years. Completely transformed the way they marketed and channeled brilliant farming chemicals to the farming community, and took on the GMOs, took on and helped grow the natural seed and natural chemical, there's such a thing as natural chemicals, clean chemicals, into the agrochemical market. Made a huge impact in the Africa market. It was great times, and it was a healing time as well, because what happened as we go through life, willing to see and willing to raise that dark, shadowy self, that void that's filled with sadness and anger, as you bring it to the surface, it heals. And business became an opportunity for me to exercise the understanding that came through the periods of self-reflection. And so life has always been incredibly rewarding, because I've been willing to look for the meaning in life. And when you understand, you learn, and when you learn, you grow. When you grow, you transcend understanding into the knowing of it, and the knowing of it becomes the path, and naturally just flows to your highest ideal. And if your highest ideal is aligned with what you do, joy is the natural experience. Now, that's the summary of 54 years. And it sounds so easy. And it hasn't been easy, especially when you have to truly turn inwards and say, what am I doing? This doesn't feel right. This can't be right. Your deep intuition is saying this is wrong, and it's working. That's the most radical challenge, is when things are working, but deep inside it's saying it's wrong, and you have to shift it. You have to turn it, and knowing that your intuition is always correct, and it means change, and the world resists change because change is feared, because change brings about letting go of what we become comfortable with, even though it may not serve us. But we fear change because change means the unknown. And if we project our fear into the future, the unknown, change is always the most fearful experience. Yeah. So that's the summary of my life in a nutshell.
Lewis, what stood out for me was when you started talking about, the ambition to be wealthy. I get it. And to achieve success. I think 95% of the people who may listen to this will resonate with what that means. People want to be successful, right? People want to achieve in their lives. Yet you did it. Okay, so you can say that you achieved the ambition, right? You met success and you created and you were successful. Now, somebody else listening from the outside would be like, well, then what's the problem here? Because you were then in alignment. Your blessings unfolded and you achieved what you had set out to achieve. You're saying, I was empty. I collected and I gathered, and with more, there was still something missing. So what was missing?
The truth. The truth was missing. The reality of it was missing.
Mm.
The essence of love was missing. Everything I'd set out to achieve and achieved, and I figured out law of attraction at a very young age. I figured out at a very young age, whatever I visualize, if I believe it's possible and visualize it into the future with complete belief and then surrender it, it comes. Don't chase it. Chasing it kills it, because chasing means you don't have it. The minute you chase, you don't have. If you're full, if the leopard is full, he doesn't chase the gazelle. He's full. When the leopard's hungry, he chases the gazelle. Could catch, maybe not catch. So law of attraction simply states, and it's universally at play continuously, is belief. And it's not just believing conceptually, believing in it in the essence of your being. And how do you know you believe it? When you're grateful for it. The minute you can see it and you're grateful for it, knowing it's for you, there it is. It comes incredibly quick. The minute though, you visualize it, you create the vision. In other words, it doesn't come to you. You start imagining what it could be. You see the world. You imagine what's successful. I mean, as a young boy, I could draw. What do you do with drawing? Artists. Well, artists are poor and they chop off their ear. That was the belief. No, don't go there. But whenever I watched a movie, the successful guy in the fancy car who always got the girl, who either wore a polo neck or a bow tie, he was an architect. And architects were successful and popular, and they were always the good guy. Architecture. Take your drawing, take it into architecture. I hated architecture. Drawing, designing, fantastic. Meeting with the client, horrid. Client's idea of what is good architecture is, sorry that sounds so critical and so condescending, horrific. What the housewife wants as a house, and and where she wants to place the chandelier, horrific. Great architects must just keep it to themselves, because great architecture, especially in Africa, no one, first of all, can afford it, and second of all, the kind of stuff I want to design is unlivable. It's just too many sharp edges. You can't have children in my homes because it's just going to kill you. So, it's clinical, and it might as well be a hospital. And first of all, builders couldn't build a straight wall, never mind cantilever a slab for 17 meters, because they'd say it's impossible, even though Corbusier did it in 1917. Anyway, and so architecture immediately became, no, I hate this. This is not for me. Hours and hours of designing, and I was pre-CAD era, so it was all by hand, drawing boards. And it sounded romantic. The minute you were doing it, there was no romantic to this. This is just, and builders will drive you insane because they're going to chop the corner and go as quickly as they can and never get it finished on time. And there's always an excuse. I hated that idea. And then the idea of marketing and strategy and advertising, I'd watch TV and watch the adverts. That would be fantastic. And so IMM and BCom, before you know it, I'm marketing or strategic director of Grey Worldwide, and briefing these amazing adverts, and it's all just fantastic. And then you just have the clients, or you have the neurotic person running the agency. You can imagine agencies are filled with creatives and neurotics. It just drives you crazy. You don't do this anymore. I said, hang a second, I'd rather be the client. So let's go run the business. And so next thing you know, you're either the marketing director or the managing director of this brilliant brand. And you're calling the shots, but the shareholders are never happy because they want a return which is impossible. They all want returns that's impossible. And if you give them those returns that's impossible, they want it more. They want more of that. You give them the impossible, they want more. Whether the factory can manufacture or not. And so what I quickly realized is, first of all, most people have no idea what they want, but they have an idea of what will make them happy. But as soon as they get it, the emptiness returns. Why? Why does the emptiness return? And why does that emptiness either turn into sadness or rage? It's going to go two ways. It can only go two ways. Emptiness goes into sadness or rage. That's the ego's way. Seek but do not find. Why? Because it's not natural. It's not aligned with your highest ideal. And our highest ideal is universally exactly the same. It's not how do I get. It's how do I serve. Serve what? Your highest ideal. What is your purpose? Serve your highest ideal. And the minute we pursue anything is because we've created an idea, an ideology of what will make us happy. People, places, things, and events. If I have that, if I marry this one, if I have that job, if I do this, if I live here, if I own that, I'll be happy because that's what it looks like. The minute you have it, you realize the people that appeared to have it weren't happy either. Just appeared to, because you've romanticized it, fantasized about it. The pursuit of it was happy. The minute you had it, it wasn't. Why? It wasn't aligned. You cannot have what isn't real. You can only have what is real, and what is real is the very essence of what you are. So by all means, pursue your dream if it's aligned with your highest ideal, in which case it's no longer a dream, but it's disguised as a dream, so that when you pursue that path, the unfolding of that path will help you realize the self, which is the very essence of our joy, peace, and love. But we have to be conscious of it, and we have to knowingly go searching for it internally. And searching for it means abiding in it, because there's no search. I mean, the distance between you and yourself is a thought, a simple thought, and the releasing of. And the reason I can honestly say I've experienced gaining everything I want is because by the time I was 30 years a millionaire, didn't make me happy. I would have given it all away for a moment of peace and love and joy. I would have given it, and well, I somehow did. Thank goodness for a tumor. But I had to restart my life at 36. Between tumor and starting again, there was a 3-year gap. And at 36, I re-engaged the world. And Zoom Zoom was alive with Mazda, and I was on a retainer. So I was very blessed. There was money coming in, and I was doing some part-time lecturing at Damlin as well, because that meant imparting creativity out there. And the minute I figured out the essential nature, which we call talent, my essential nature was divine nature flowing through my inherent built-in natural talent. The minute I started to serve that, the joyous serving of that became joy. And then it didn't matter whether you achieved or not, because it was no longer about achieving or realizing an end goal. It was the experiencing of it. It doesn't stay, because the minute you're in that happy, joyous flow, something happens. And the ego says, no, you don't. And it starts to pull your attention into the world. And what happens? Our prejudices, whether suppressed or prevalent in our awareness, pull our attention. And so the minute we start to compare, we're judging. And it'll pull you straight back into that vortex of emptiness. And I went through it 2 or 3 times where I would find this complete clarity and I'd be in total peace, joy, love. And I would go and create something again and just misdirect my attention and fall back into that empty void. But what I was experiencing through the process, I'd build it, lose it all, build it, lose it all, was I started to realize there was no value in any of it anyway, not even in the building of it, but the knowing of self through the process, the complete conscious awareness of yourself as you do everything. As we speak now, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. It's flowing through me. I'm present in my awareness, present with you and with everyone listening to this, even though as I speak right now, there's no one listening yet. But the knowing that this is out there and it's going to reach exactly who it needs to reach. At the exact moment it's meant, this podcast could be out for the next 20 years. I may be long gone by then. Someone who listens to it, and at that moment when they are aligned with their highest ideal, which is aligned with ours right now, they'll find this and it will have meaning for them. And it's the realization that never compare, never judge, never measure against, and always be as authentic to your true self as possible. What is our true self? Your essential nature. What is it that you love to do? With the recognition that what you love to do is pure consciousness flowing through the filter of what we call talent in this lifetime, wanting to make itself known in order for you to retain the memory of self and source simultaneously. And that we are here to remember what we are. First through our formative years up until our early 30s, where we basically practice what we are through the experience of what we're not. We're busy we set up through our formative years, we set up the lessons. We set up our obstacles to peace, our prejudices, our beliefs start to become our obstacles to peace, and we get pulled in a certain direction, and we call that our passion. Pulls us in a certain direction in order to find those obstacles to overcome. Those obstacles are shadow self, the suppressed, subconscious perceptions and judgments of the ego mind, which need to be brought to the surface, need to be revealed in order to be cleansed in the light of awareness. And that then becomes how you then serve for the rest of your life. So up until your 30s, you form it. From your 30s to your 50s, you unravel it, you bring it into the light of awareness, and from your 50s onwards, you then serve it. Now, I'm using myself as a reference, 30, 50, etc. It may be different for everyone else. It will come at its own time. And the important thing is not to put yourself under pressure because XYZ, Elon Musk was a multi-billionaire by 30. I only made my first million by 50. Elon Musk was programmed before incarnating to be Elon Musk. It could have been called XYZ. Someone had to play that role. And in Elon Musk's life, that role is what will help him transcend himself into the exact same state we all are when we fully awake, which is the awareness of self, the divine self, the self which is the kingdom of God. The divine self, you are the kingdom. It's not the kingdom isn't within you. There's not a space. There's no within and without. You are the kingdom. You are the very essence, which is the kingdom. And the reason we're here in form, pursuing careers and our ambitions and wanting to manifest is because the process of wanting to manifest is the process that then unveils that which isn't true, the suppressed, prejudicial ego. Once that's brought to the surface, that gets cleansed and the pure light of awareness flows through your passionate nature. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But just to go back to your earlier question, no matter what you achieve in terms of the sense of worldly success, money, doesn't matter. No matter what you achieve, you won't be any happier unless you have connected with the very essence of what you are. And yes, you could be richer and unconscious, or poorer and unconscious. Well, I'd rather be rich and unconscious than poor and unconscious, because at least you can pretend to be happy, but you're never happy. And so there's two important things in this: is by attaching to the world and trying to hang on to it, you will remain unhappy because it'll be taken from you. People will try and take it from you all the time. Or you can try and push away from the world, detach from the world, hide from it, become a recluse, become a hippie, live on the beach, surf all day long. And your detachment will make you unhappy because you're detaching from you. The entire universe is a projection of you. You can't deny it. You need to love all of it unconditionally. Love all of it, accept it as it is. We're not talking about romantic love. We're not talking about, we will never comprehend agape while we're in physical form, but the complete unconditional love in this world is the total acceptance of what is. That is love your creation, all of it. And of course, you're going to resonate with certain people, places, things, and events, and that is more true to your awareness. But it's all you. And it's not to detach or attach. It's to be non-attached to either. It's just doing what you do because you love to be this. Not because you're looking for an outcome, not because you're trying to fix or heal or create, simply because it's your natural, passionate nature to do whatever it is you do. And when you do whatever it is that you're passionate about, you're aligned, and natural flow will happen. And flow is law of attraction, which means manifestation, the appearance of manifestation. Because in this vibration called the universe, where truth is vibrating in a way that it appears to be seen, the core essence of it is love. And so closer you align to love, meaning your passionate nature, the closer what appears to be a manifestation aligns with your highest joy. So manifestation becomes joy expressed, not made in order to experience joy. Whenever you pursue something in the hope it will make you happy, it will temporarily. And as happy as it made you, it'll make you unhappy. It's when the experience of it is the expression of joy that the happiness remains. And if it should fade from your awareness, you feel no worse for it because it was, and you know it's always you. And that's why I always say, if it comes to you and you desire to do it, do it. Believe in, if it's appeared to you as a vision, as an idea, as a concept, if it's appearing in your awareness, the very fact that it appears in your awareness as an idea, vision, means it's already in process. Thought becomes action, becomes manifestation. Because in the world of bodies, in the universe of bodies, what we look, feel, see, touch is simply a representation of pure love, filtered through ideas. And those ideas could then become prejudiced, beliefs, and yet it's the very process of understanding those filters, bringing them to the surface, that allows them to dissolve, because what is it filtering? It's filtering pure light of awareness, pure light of love. And so when the filters are made known, the light is revealed. What is the light? Love. What is love? God, source, whatever you want to call it. And so life itself and the pursuit of whatever you believe will make you happy. In other words, what's in the way is the way, because it's the undoing and the willing to have it undone and revealed, brought to the surface, cleaned, forgiven if it was the cause of your misery, let go, it then reveals itself as the pure light of awareness. And it wants to play. It wants to share. It's that wonderful prayer of Francis of Assisi. Make me an instrument of your peace. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? To whom would you have me serve? It's now the wanting to pour out.
Yes.
And in my way, it's played out in strategic leadership. And that's what I do best. I have the ability to look at the big picture, especially the troubled spots, connect the dots, align the dots, drive it to fruition. All the time knowing that what am I doing? I'm just being, not actually doing anything. I'm just expressing the joy of being when what appears to be driving a business, coaching, leadership, whether I'm a managing director or a coach. It's the same for me. It's the gentle directing of our essential nature. And if we look close enough, everyone is being exposed. Life is designed to be a hurdle so that you're forced to look at those hurdles internally, prejudices, beliefs, norms and values, bring them to the surface and let the light of awareness clear them. Business as a path to enlightenment, title of a great book, is the most natural path to awakening. While you're feeding your family and driving a nice car. Why not?
Yeah. I love that you said that, because guilt can so easily creep in, right, Luis? Like hearing your rise and your trajectory to success, and then like someone's in that position right now, wanting to create business success, wanting to create the home and however many cars, whatever it may be. But that's not wrong. In fact, wherever you are is revealing to you what you need to see on a deeper level. So please stay there.
Absolutely. Your ambition you're never meant to feel guilty of your ambition, because your ambition is planted for you, by you, before you come in a form. Because driving towards the ambition, whether it's going to be challenging, heartbreaking, or joyous, if you stay consciously aware of what is happening within you as you pursue what appears to be your dreams and ambitions, you'll realize that in the path to achieve the house, the car, the business, the castle, the harem, whatever it is you want, will reveal the very essence of what you are. Once you're there, you don't just stop living and now just sit under the Bodhi tree and go home all day long. Once that awareness is there, it will want to keep pouring. It will want to keep pouring. And whether it is to build rocket ships or to feed the poor, it will still want to pour. It doesn't go, okay, I wake up. Awakening isn't a static point that you get to and now you're awake to the essence of what you are, and then it just, okay, I'm ready to die. No, that's when it becomes also powerful, that it wants to pour into all of it. If you were to offer me a job today, funny enough, today I was offered a job. And actually, in fact, I was offered 2 jobs today, 10 o'clock this morning, and then just before this talk, someone called me to say, hey, there's a job for you. And the one is a struggling company. They're in deep trouble. If they don't get turned around in the next year, 4,000 people lose their jobs. And the other one is babysit this fantastic job. It's a great brand, comes in bright blue and yellow, and it's just going to be wonderful. And there's a hospitality suite, and there's a company there, and there's a beach house, and we'll pay you really well. And to me, it's just clear. The job where the people are about to lose it's going to drive me insane. I'm going to have to go there, and I have to ruffle feathers. I have to slap a few people around, spiritually speaking. Possibly a person or two may even lose their job when I take over. I'm going to have to shake that tree. I'm going to have to fight with them. And 2 years later, I'm going to give them a whole new company, employ another 1,000 people, and give them a sustainable business. And it's half the pay. You already know where I'm going. I'm going into the troubled waters because I'm designed to fix.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go and be happy, Lou? Why don't you just take the easy job, and it's a cushy job for the next 10 years, and they'll pay you amazingly, and you just retire? Because I don't see it as an obstacle. I see it as, I didn't come to this world I didn't incarnate again to come here and live a cushy life. If I want cushy, I stay there. I came here to bring the light of awareness. I want to show people another way. There's another way to do this. There's another way to see this. Doing is the wrong word. There's another way to see this. And once you see it, the doing will flow.
Yeah.
Don't do and then see. You see first, and then the doing is the externalization of the knowing, of the seeing. But please pursue your dreams. Please pursue whatever. Don't ever feel guilt, because we all know the story of guilt. Guilt is like swallowing poison, hoping you'll feel better or someone else feels better. There's no purpose in guilt other than to derail you. But guilt has one important gift to you. And be aware of this. And this is important. If you're feeling guilty, don't just feel guilty. Okay? If you feel guilty, go into the very core of the guilt, which is not easy. Go into it. Go find the core of the guilt. Find the story. What are you feeling guilty for? And look for a reason to feel gratitude, because guilt will reveal the lesson. And when you understand the lesson, you'll understand why you felt guilty. Now, if the lesson gives you gratitude, it's the gratitude for the lesson dispels guilt. Getting rid of guilt is no different to saying to someone, I forgive you. It means nothing and has no effect whatsoever. You can't get rid of guilt, and you can't just say, I forgive you to someone and it's gone away. Both to get rid of guilt and to forgive someone means you need to understand the benefit of the lesson learned. Why was I feeling guilty? What have I learned from it? What do I never want to do again because I never want to feel guilt? That's the lesson. Thank you. What did they do to hurt me, whatever the case may be, or harm me? Got it. Forgive them. So it's the gratitude for the lesson that dispels the lesson. To forgive is to forget means I understood it. It's never going to happen again. It won't come. Guilt's exactly the same. What have I done? Why do I feel guilty? What must I do to never do it again? Now, one of the lessons may be don't do it again, or the lesson may be I have this preconceived preconceived idea that I don't deserve to be wealthy, that spiritual people shouldn't be wealthy. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolutely nonsense. Abundance is an abundant state of mind. And if you have an abundant state of mind, you have an abundant, joyous life in whatever is abundant to you. Now, if you want to lead people in the Western world, India's got enough gurus. They don't want another one of you. If you want to lead people to another way of seeing things, to a more joyous way, you want to end the throes of racism or discrimination or sexism, you can't do it on bended knee. The minute you're in a place of power and a place of command, then you can guide people there. And what the world needs is successful, abundant people living in abundance, sharing it. If an Elon Musk tomorrow, I hope Elon listens to this, takes a third of his proceeds that he's spending on SpaceX, first of all, how many jobs is he creating? So the more he creates, the more employment he creates. And if he was just to take something and then do a community project, help whatever, animals poor, whatever the case may be, people would sponsor him even more. People would follow him even more. But if he was to give away all his money, within 10 years there'd be nothing left, because now he's gone and given it all away to save the poor or the starving or the dying or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
The fact that he's building an empire means he's employing thousands of people that otherwise would have been without a job. And so don't ever feel guilt for creating. The only time you should ever feel guilt, and this is a paradox in what I'm saying, is when you lose self-awareness. So no matter what you do, whether you succeed in the worldly view or fail, matters not one iota. There's no relevance whatsoever whether you succeed or fail. You truly fail when you lose awareness. And so when you start to lose the very essence of self, fear comes in. Why? Fear of always the future. If you stay in the past, the history, the past, you bring it into the present, you recreate it. If you can go present in the awareness of what the essence of what you are. Just you. I mean, I don't want to use fancy words here. Just be aware of, here I am. Here's my thoughts. Here's my feelings. Here I am. Present. Okay? How's the day gone? What have I learned? What can I do different? What mustn't I do again? How am I reflecting myself? How am I reflecting the highest ideal? Act today as the person you want to be. Have I achieved it? Okay, I missed it here, I missed it there, I missed it there. Be conscious of it. Tomorrow is another day. Do it again. And if you stay conscious of that, no matter what it is that you do, the joy will keep flowing, because you're now offering yourself unconditionally, willing to look at self and constantly rise to your highest self ideal. Life becomes a wonderful process of self-realization, which finally and ultimately reveals the highest self, the divine self. Never feel guilty for the life you are and for the gifts you've been given, for the abilities you've been given. You've been both the pauper and the king, and now you're somewhere in between. Live this life you've been given and have chosen to live to the highest ideal possible. Do it knowingly, without guilt, quick to forgive self and others. Never hold anyone in guilt or self. Release this so that you can be released. What you offer, you receive. And be the best you can without trying to be anything but yourself.
Yeah.
And excuse the French here, and fuck anyone who thinks different. Because no one has the right to judge you. The Lord God of our being doesn't judge us. What gives another ego the right to judge you? But be that too. Don't judge others, because as you judge, it becomes your own self-judgment. The unconditional acceptance of what is what is. If you don't like something about the world you see, change your view about it. And once you've changed your view about it, then do something about it or leave it alone. We want the world to change without us changing ourselves. We want the world to change without doing anything about it. So either you change your view about it, your reaction to it, or you leave it alone. Complaining about it just drags you into the vortex of emptiness. If the war's not in front of you, why do you want to switch on the television and watch the news so you can pick a side? You'd be better off going into silence and praying for the healing of that war. But switching it on, taking a side, getting yourself rallied up, picking it aside, and we want to see our brother guilty. Until you want to see your brother, and I mean everyone in this world, as innocent, you will look for reasons to feel guilty. You have to desire to want to see them guiltless. And the minute you desire to see the world guiltless, you will see a guiltless world.
I'm swimming in your words and what you're saying, and it's probably the most silent I've ever been on a podcast. So that tells me so much. What I'm going to be doing then, Luesh, is actually asking you and inviting you now. We're going to have to do another one, because this is but just a little bit of it, and you've shared so much that people can listen to, re-listen to, reflect on, that you've learned about yourself and that you're able to teach yourselves. I want to ask you, just before we wrap up, the book. You've written books before. There's a new book, and this could be another way for people to access the information that you're sharing.
Yeah, so my new book is called A School Called the Universe. It really follows on from my first book, A School Called Earth. There were two books in between, The Reawakening of Consciousness and To Medicate or Meditate. But all those three books are now out of print and no longer being published. I've pulled them from publications. So A School Called the Universe pretty much wraps up the first three books and more. And it explains two important aspects of life. One, the illusionary part of this world and the spirit world, and how we're trapped between the two, believing both this world and the spirit world are real. Now we're trapped in this loop. And then the transcendence of the dream world, spirit world and and physical world are both constructs of the dream. Now to transcend that into the awakened mind, or in religious terms, it could be known as the self, or the I am, or in Christianity, it's called the Christ mind. And to realize that the very essence of what we are is made from the essence of our source. And because we forgot what we are, we fell asleep in essence. An aspect of self fell asleep and dreamt up the universe, and is trying to remember what it is through the experience of what it's not, through the experience of manifestation, manifesting what it's not. And the book is also based on the factual proof comes from 300 life between life regressions that I did as a therapist, where all 300 people attested to the exact same detail of life in the spirit world. And yet there was something missing. And then I spent the next 10 years in deep inner reflection until it was revealed. And then went back to the regression table. And as soon as I had access, my clients had access too. And so we then realized the Christ mind, the Christ consciousness, how we're in the stage of Christ consciousness transition. The world is now going through that transition. And the world's not at war. There's no war between good and bad, or light and dark. Light is never at war with anything. Light is truth, darkness is illusion. What appears to be a war, a spiritual war, is between two egos, right-minded and wrong-minded ego. Good ego is fighting bad ego. They're both illusion. You need to transcend that, step above the battlefield into the awakened Christ mind, the I am mind. And this is then immediately released. And that's what the book is about. In it, I explain the conceptual theory, I give the proof to where it all comes from, and then I take the reader through a process of self-inquiry into awakened consciousness. If this book doesn't help the reader awaken, and what is awakening or enlightenment? It's the pure recognition of one's own being. The essential essence and nature of one's own being is enlightenment. If this book doesn't do it, then you just have to keep practicing, because I share everything after 30 years of research and travel and then self-reflection and my own process of getting there. And it becomes a guiding light for others to follow their own path within. So it gives you not a process, but just a gentle guiding nudge in the right direction. And if it doesn't make you smile, at least laugh, then you've bought the wrong book, but I believe it will. So yeah, it's available on Amazon.
Amazon. Okay, cool. So a school called The Universe on Amazon. And then, Lewis, just a massive thank you. I look forward to doing it again. We're going to. So
Sure.
let's dive in another time. Thank you for the conversation today. Thank you for how much you've shared there. And I know that people will have to really dive in and listen with a very silent, still ear to what you were sharing and pointing towards.
You've nailed it on. That's your final words is the final answers. Find the stillness. Still the mind. Find the stillness. Find the here and now in the stillness. And ask to be shown. Within. Ask for it to be revealed simply by the recognition, the acknowledgement. Here now. I'm always here now. I am the kingdom. And it's just waiting to be revealed through me, by me, for all of myself.